Nobody sells their house, drives 1,500 miles south, and pulls into a driveway in Florida, thinking they have made a mistake. On the day you arrive, it is February. The sky is that impossible blue. Somebody at the gas station calls you sweetheart, and you sit outside at 7 in the evening, in a shirt with no sleeves, and you think, that is it. I have done it. I have finally cracked the code that everyone I left behind in Ohio is still trying to solve. My name is Roy Baker, and I spend my working life inside Florida numbers, county by county, price by price. And the thing those numbers keep telling me is that almost nobody regrets this state for the reason they expected to. They budgeted for the heat. They did not budget for the other 9 things. The regret does not arrive in that first week. It arrives in the second August. Not the first one, because the first one you treat like an adventure, like weather that is happening to somebody else and will presently stop. The second August is when it lands that this is not weather at all. It is the climate you now live inside, and it will be back every year for the rest of your life here. Before I get into the list, do me one favor, because I genuinely want to know who is out there tonight. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Indiana, Ontario, Yorkshire, or a lanai in Port Charlotte with the fan going. And if you already made the move, put the year you came, because 1998 looks very different from 2022. I read every one of them. So, the first thing, everyone warns you about the heat. Nobody successfully warns you about the wet. Heat you can picture, because you have been hot before, in a car park in Pennsylvania in July. What you cannot picture until you have stood in it is stepping out of an air-conditioned car in Fort Myers at 3 o'clock and having the air close over you like a hand. Your glasses fog instantly. Your shirt is wet before you reach the shop door, not from effort, just from existing. There is a reason for that, and it is worth understanding rather than just enduring. In a dry climate, your sweat evaporates, and the evaporation is what actually cools you down. That is the whole purpose of sweating. Here the air is already so full of water that there is nowhere for yours to go, so it simply sits on your skin. Your body's one cooling system quietly stops working. That is not a thing you toughen up to. It is physics, and it does not care how determined you are. Which leads to the second thing, and this is the one that genuinely breaks people, because it is the exact opposite of what they came for. You did not move here for the indoors. You moved here for the outdoors, and for 5 months a year, Florida takes the outdoors away from you. Think honestly about what you were escaping. Up in Michigan or New York, winter locks you in the house from December through March, and you resented it so much that you sold everything and left. Then you get here and find the same sentence has been rewritten with different nouns. From late May into early October, the middle of the day belongs to nobody. The pool is the temperature of a bath and gives you no relief at all. The golf happens at dawn, or it does not happen. The dog walk is before 7 or after 8. Everybody tells you that you get used to it. What actually happens is that you rebuild your entire day around avoiding the hours between 11 and 5, which is precisely what you were doing in Buffalo. The season simply has a different name and better light. So ask yourself this honestly before you go any further. How much of the reason you want to move here is about being outside? Because if the answer is most of it, then you need to know that the thing you are buying is only fully available to you for about 7 months of the year, and the other 5 are the ones nobody films. Third, and this is the one my inbox is genuinely full of. The mortgage was never the expensive part. People do the arithmetic on the purchase price. They compare it to what they sold up north, and it looks like a clear win, and quite often it is. Then the other bills start arriving, and they are not small, and they never stop. There is the insurance, which for a great many Florida homeowners now runs somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 a year, depending on where the house sits, how close it is to water, and above all how old the roof is. There is the property tax. And there is the Homeowners Association, if you bought into one, and most people did without thinking of it as a bill at all. Stack those 3 together, and for an enormous number of households in this state, they now add up to more than the mortgage payment itself. Not close to it. More than it. Nobody puts that on the listing. The listing shows you a price, and a price is a one-time event. It does not show you the second bill, the one that arrives every year afterwards, forever, and keeps arriving long after the house is paid off. If you take one thing from this whole video, make it that. Before you fall in love with a house here, ask the current owner what the last insurance renewal and the last tax bill actually were, in dollars, and ask to see them. Fourth, hurricane season is not a headline in Florida. It is a season in the ordinary way that winter is a season. From the 1st of June to the end of November, there is a part of your brain that never fully switches off. You learn what the cone means, you learn to read a spaghetti model, and you learn not to trust one at 5 days out. You find out which petrol stations in your town have a generator, and you find that out the hard way, in a queue, at 10 o'clock at night, with everyone else who also just found out. Then the storm turns and misses you by 90 miles, and the relief is so enormous that you forget the entire thing until the next one spins up 11 days later. What people underestimate is not the storm itself. Most storms miss most people. It is the afterwards. It is 9 days with no electricity in September, in that heat, with the windows shut, because after a storm the windows have to stay shut. Somebody said a thing to me about this once that I have never been able to unhear. They said they would not choose to live anywhere, that losing power is not an inconvenience, but a genuine danger to somebody their age. That is the honest version of Florida in September, and it deserves 5 minutes of thought before you sign anything, especially if there is medical equipment in the house that has to stay running. Fifth, and this one is not really about Florida at all. It is about grief. Talk to anybody who arrived here in the 80s or the 90s, and within about 4 minutes they will start describing a place that does not exist anymore. The 2-lane road that is now 6 lanes and a flyover. The orange grove that is now a roundabout and 400 houses with the same 3 floor plans. The stretch of road across the middle of the state where you used to drive 20 minutes without seeing another set of headlights. They are not really complaining about traffic. They are mourning something. And the genuinely awkward part, the part nobody says at the neighborhood meeting, is that the people doing the mourning and the people who caused it are frequently the same people. Everybody was the last acceptable arrival, and everybody after them was too many. If you move here now, you are somebody else's too many. That is not a reason to stay away. It is simply worth knowing what the pause means when you tell a man at the hardware store that you have just come down from New Jersey. Sixth, the association. I want to be fair here, because plenty of people love theirs, and a well-run association genuinely does protect your street, your quiet, and your resale value. But a great many people arrive from somewhere that has no such thing, having spent 40 years doing whatever they pleased with their own house, and they do not really understand what they have agreed to until the first letter comes. The letter is about the color of the front door, or the pressure washing of the driveway, or the pickup truck that cannot be parked where it has been parked every night since you got here. And the fees rise, and on top of the fees they can assess you for a roof, a seawall, a lawsuit, or a lift. And that assessment is not optional, and it can run into thousands of dollars with a few weeks' notice. Nobody moves 1,500 miles in search of freedom expecting to receive a letter about the color of their front door. Now stay with me for this next one, because of everything on this list, it is the one I get the most letters about afterwards. And it is the one that nobody making these videos ever bothers to cover. Seventh, what Florida is actually like if you have a dog. Pavement in the middle of a summer afternoon here will hurt an animal. The old test is the back of your hand. If you cannot hold it against the ground for 7 seconds, it is too hot for pause, and for a great deal of the year and most of the day the ground here fails that test badly. That is the small thing. The bigger things are the ones nobody raises at the closing table. Fire ants, which find a paw in seconds, and which are in far more lawns than you would like. The toads that come out after summer rain, which a curious dog will mouth exactly once and become extremely ill from, or worse, and any vet in the south of this state will tell you the same story about them every single summer. And the retention ponds. Almost every community here is built around a pretty little ornamental pond, and a fair number of those ponds have something living in them, and a small dog at the water's edge at dusk is simply not a safe arrangement. None of that is mentioned while you are being shown around. You find it out later, when you join a local group online and watch the same 3 warnings get posted every June by people who learned them the hard way. Eighth, the waiting room. This is the one people should think about hardest and think about least. You have moved into a county where a very large share of your new neighbors are also over 65 and also need a cardiologist. And the supply of cardiologists did not move down here with you. In the fastest growing retiree counties, the wait for a specialist can run into months, and the better practices are quietly not accepting new patients at all. You discover this at the precise moment you need it not to be true. There is a 5-minute job that fixes this, and almost nobody does it. Before you buy anywhere in this state, telephone the 2 nearest practices in the specialty you personally use, and ask one question: are you accepting new patients? That single call will tell you more about your next 10 years than any brochure, any tour, and any video, including this one. And while you have the phone in your hand, ask them the second question as well. How far is the nearest hospital with a full emergency department, and is it the one the ambulance would actually take you to? Those are not always the same building, and in some of the inland counties, the honest answer is a drive that will surprise you. People shopping for a house measure the distance to the beach and to the shops. Almost nobody measures the distance that matters at 4 in the morning. Ninth, and this is almost funny right up until it happens to you. There are 2 Floridas, and they change places in the middle of the year. You visit in March. The restaurants are humming, the town feels alive, there is a farmer's market on the square, and a queue outside the coffee shop, and you think, yes, this is a community, I could belong here. Come back to the same street in August, and it can feel closed. Half the houses are dark. Some restaurants shut for 2 months. The couple you befriended in February went back to Illinois in April, and will not return until November. People who buy on the strength of a March visit sometimes find they have bought into a town that is only fully switched on for part of the year, and that the quiet months are very quiet indeed if you do not already have people. It cuts the other way too, and this is the part nobody warns the newcomer about. In the towns that fill up rather than empty out, the season means the surgery is full, the restaurant needs a booking, and a 12-minute drive becomes 40. Then in the summer you get your town back, and it is glorious. Whichever of those 2 patterns your street follows, you want to know which one it is before you own a house on it, not after. Which brings me to the last one, and honestly it is the one that explains most of the other 9. So let me ask you something first. When you picture yourself living here, what exactly are you picturing? Be specific about it. What is out of the window, and how far is the water from the back door? Because 10th, and sitting underneath everything else on this list, there is the Florida in the advertisement, and there is the Florida most people can genuinely afford, and they are not the same state. The advertisement is a low white house 4 streets back from the water, with a golf cart in the garage. The affordable one is inland, often an hour or more from any beach, in a county with a smaller hospital, fewer restaurants, and summers with no sea breeze whatsoever to take the edge off the afternoon. Both of those are completely, legitimately Florida. Only one of them is on the postcard. People who arrive expecting the first and land in the second very rarely say they regret Florida. They say Florida was not what they thought it would be, which is the same sentence wearing a nicer coat. Now let me turn all of this round, because I do not think this state is a mistake, and I would not spend my working life on these numbers if I did. Almost everyone I speak to, who is genuinely, durably happy here, has the same 2 things in common. The first is that they rented for a full year before they bought anything, and crucially they rented through an August, not through a January. Anybody can love this place in January. The second is that they were honest with themselves in advance about which of these 10 they could actually live with, instead of assuming they would simply toughen up on arrival. Because some of these do not negotiate. The humidity does not care how determined you are. The insurance bill does not care how much you love the sunset over the water. But the association, the hospital access, the seasonal swing, the pond at the end of the street, the difference between coastal and inland, every one of those is a choice you get to make with your eyes open, town by town, before you sign anything. That is the work I actually do. I keep a list of 40 towns in this state, 20 I would buy into today, and 20 I would drive straight past, with the real carrying costs written next to each one, and it is called the Florida Buy and Avoid List. The link is in the description under this video if it would be useful to you. Because here is the honest ending, and it goes right back to that driveway in February. Regret in this state is almost never really about the weather. It is about the distance between the Florida somebody sold you and the Florida that actually turns up in the 2nd August. Close that gap before you sign, and the sky in February is still that impossible blue. The man at the gas station still calls you sweetheart, and it is still absolutely worth it. So tell me, if you already made the move, which of those 10 caught you out? And please be honest, because the person reading your comment tonight is somebody with a house under contract who still has time to change their mind. And if you are still up north with a folder of listings on the kitchen table, tell me the town you are looking at, and I will tell you straight what the carrying cost there really looks like. Subscribe if you want the rest of these, because I go through this state town by town every week, and I would rather you found the honest number before you signed than afterwards. I am Roy Baker. Next time I am going into the strangest thing in Florida geography, which is that 23 million people live in this state and almost none of them live in the middle of it. And the reason why is not what anybody guesses.